Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
Do not adjust your set. Superman has returned, but the colors are all wrong. Grayscale is rarely glimpsed, and our favorite Kryptonian isn't an Ayn Randian nightmare. What's going on? James Gunn is here to remind us that characters struggling to maintain an optimistic outlook in spite of existential challenges do have a place in our current geopolitical quagmire, and that comic book corniness can be a good thing. Today, the only brutalist filmmaking we need should conclude with Adrian Brody giving the longest, most annoying Oscars acceptance speech in history. All right, we're back.
That we are.
And we're here talking about the most controversial movie of the summer for some reason. Superman. Specifically the new DCU, not the DCEU, the DCU starter. Well, I guess Blue Beetle is kind of still canon with that. And Peacemaker is in this. Whatever. DCU kickoff movie. Superman. Directed by
like
James
a Kevin
Gunn.
Feige style thing to explain the layout.
But yeah, so with all the stuff we were talking about and everything, I was actually quite looking forward to this. I really like James Gunn's superhero movies, and I was very hopeful that this was going to be good. And to kind of cut right to the chase, it was pretty much what I was hoping it would be. I really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I think it was... I've enjoyed his previous stuff, both prior to, crossing over to like mainstream superhero stuff. But I think that he's been responsible for some of the kind of standout stuff in like Marvel and in the DC stuff. Like he takes characters, and I have to say, like, Superman's maybe not my go-to guy or whatever, but like he takes characters and he's able to imbue them with interesting storylines and pull out like this real heart and empathy from them. So I was curious to see what was going to go on, and the trailer looked a little like overpacked and stuff, but I feel like I felt that way about every single one of his trailers. So like, okay, I guess we'll just see how it goes, and here we are with the payoff.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest concern when I was seeing the trailers. It's like, look, this person's in the movie, this person's in the movie, this person's in the movie. And I was getting a little nervous. Again, I was willing to trust the process, but I was like, James, that's an awful lot of people for a movie called Superman. I mean, but
Superman and Friends.
But I have to say, I do think that it juggled it pretty well for the most part. I'll kind of get into that once we start digging into the movie itself. Let's see, I'll talk about like the first third of the movie pretty freely. We'll do a spoiler warning for about a third of the way in, because that's when the first like real bombshell hits in the plot, and then go from there.
Yeah.
We'll touch on some of the stuff that's been going on. I do think that I want to we'll do some stuff kind of talking about like thematically with the previous iteration, but for the most part, I don't want our conversation to just be, oh, this movie did this right, while the Man of Steel did this wrong for the entire conversation.
Just a Snyder punching bag.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, fun as that may be, I do feel like, and before we recorded, we were talking about this anyways, like you said, it's a dead horse. We don't need to dig into that anymore.
Yeah.
But anyways, to get started, like this movie starts pretty much right where the teaser trailer hits, which by the way is such a cool movie. Just like, yeah, here's just the first scene of the movie. Shit's already going down. We get the text crawl that says like Superman. Yeah, well, first of all, it's like, yeah, superheroes have been around for a few centuries by now. Superman has been active for about 3 years. He just intervened in this conflict. We'll talk more about that in a bit. And he just lost his first fight. And I do think this was a smart thing to do overall, where it's like, we know Superman's origin story at this point. It's an iconic part of American pop culture. Everyone in the grandma knows Superman was jettisoned from his planet as it exploded. He came to Earth, was raised as simple Midwestern farmers to be a good boy and to save people.
Right.
And I think that it was very smart to just kind of like, okay, you get it. We're going to jump in right in the action.
Yeah, and like even in this first stretch, like you're saying, we're familiar with probably the most like archetypal totemic Superman figures. Clark Kent, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, great, cool, got it. He starts to throw a lot of other people at us all at once, and it still flows. Like, I think the common thing I've seen around on, the internet or Letterboxd is like, it does feel like you just picked up an issue of Superman and just kind of jumped in and we're like, all right, where are we going? Which is why I could never get into comic books, because I have this like completionist anxiety that would prevent me from ever doing that. But like, I think it like James Gunn presents a very assured hand, or you get the semblance of like, okay, it's all gonna settle out. Like I'm just gonna roll with it. We'll go with it. And so it's this density of storytelling and this busyness, but it's not overstuffed. And the only time he does start to tap into like the stuff that we're familiar with on some level is when he wants to do something new with it, or something to kind of put a different spin on it, which we'll get to.
Definitely, like a big thing I've heard from a lot of folks is that the first, especially like the first act of this movie does feel like it's throwing a lot of stuff at you, because like I said, we got Lex Luthor, we got Lois Lane, but we also have this conflict between Boravia and what is it, Kandahar?
No, that's a real place.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure that's a real place. It's like
Jarhanpur.
Okay, you can understand my mix up there. Yeah, so because like he had intervened in that, and that made him controversial. And now there's this new person who's shown up and be like, I am here to avenge Boravia. But right off the bat, we see that, Lex Luthor is also on board, like giving this guy directions on what to do. And, and then at the end of the fight, this hammer Boravia goes to like secret little camp nearby, disappears in and emerges right in Lex Luthor's office. They're like, okay, something's going on here. And it's like right away, you're like, okay, there's quite a bit of moving parts. And then they introduce, what do they call it? The Justice Club? The Justice Gang. Justice Gang.
Justice Gang.
Who are like more corporate sanctioned superheroes. And they show up. And at this point, you're like, oh my God, there's like a lot of shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that
Lex has got his own bad guys. So there's like so many people.
Yeah, he has like a person who can like turn their hands into like blades, and he has Ultraman, who I think is not like a kaiju thing in Japan as well. Ultraman.
Yeah.
So that's
but
like
different,
yeah, like different character, obviously. Plus we have Crypto in here. I feel like is Crypto something that like a lot of folks would recognize?
I mean, I barely know more about DC than like a handful of movies and Super Friends, the cartoon, and I knew Crypto, so I'm gonna say yes. Yeah,
like Crypto, who, by the way, my God, it's a sweet puppy, good puppy.
It's very sweet.
And what I like is that this sets us up, because I do feel like another origin story would be like the most boring thing. I don't think anybody would get excited about another superhero origin story of any kind. And I think it is very prominent that we start with Superman losing his first fight.
Mm-hmm.
Or his first loss in a fight, not losing his first fight. Because this movie depicts a very pivotal point in his relationship with Earth.
Right.
I think that it's very pointed that when Superman, comes back to his lair to try to heal and recharge, he plays the message from his parents. It's like, oh, Clark, you have been sent from Krypton. You will go to Earth and you will help them. That very familiar message and everything. And his mission to help humanity is going to be challenged through this movie by humanity itself, by other forces that see him as a threat in one way or another.
Right. We see him he's back on his heels in a physical fight, but his sense of purpose is still very much intact, and we're kind of picking up at the point when that starts to become interesting, where change and conflict is happening on that front.
Right. It's not just about, oh, can he beat this bad guy? It's about, can he achieve the mission he has set for himself? Because that's going to require people to want him to continue doing that mission. And that is at stake. And that makes for a much more interesting conflict for Superman, who is, by definition, a man that can overcome basically anything.
Right.
I also love we get to see him in the Daily Planet. We get to see him. Basically, I'll put this right here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love about James Gunn's superhero movies, I think this is his greatest asset as a superhero movie director, is that he clearly is a fan of superheroes. He will say, he'll be like, he's like, he wants to show us, hey, here's Superman doing Daily Planet stuff. That's one of the things that he knows we want to see. And he puts that in there. And it also goes to the more obscure stuff. Like, there's a character in this movie who ends up playing a major role. This is kind of skipping forward a little bit, but it's relevant to my point. Mr. Terrific, who is like this guy who, his power is that he's very smart, and he has these little computer orbs that float around and do stuff for him. And I just saw that this is probably this was like some 2-bit character, I imagine, in a comic from way back when. And James Gunn was like, look at this guy. Isn't this guy cool? And now it's like, yeah, I want to see more Mr. Terrific now. Like, I'm excited to see more of it. And to come back to where we were, it's just like, you can just feel that James Gunn, he fast forwarded through the origin story, so we could be like, okay, here's the good shit. Here's the stuff you want to see Superman doing, Superman stuff. You want to see him doing the Clark Kent stuff. You want to see him doing the double life stuff with Lois and their romance that they have to kind of it's like they have to keep part of it like behind closed doors, stuff like that, because she knows that he's Superman, and they kind of play off of that with each other, and they can't say anything in public. It's like, it's a lot of fun. It's really great.
Well, and that's kind of where we get the dynamic between Lois and Clark, is where you kind of start to introduce on some fronts the seeds for kind of what is going to turn into a larger thing for him, but also they've been dating for a couple of months, or they've been involved in some way. Let's say it's a little fuzzy. They're, Clark is kind of non-committal, but Lois kind of starts to needle at him about the fact that he's getting all these scoops from himself because he's Superman and can interview himself or can frame how he wants things to be perceived in the press for himself. And she pushes to interview him and specifically talk about the what is at this point kind of the background kind of milieu of the story, which is this international conflict. And he agrees to this interview, but immediately collapses at her line of inquiry, and the fact that she does push him. So we're starting to get a sense of how Lois Lane is as a character who, at least from the stuff I've seen, she can be kind of hit or miss. Like, Margot Kidder's a great actor, but like what they're given to do may not be as much. And so we're starting to get a flavor for what her kind of role within the story is going to be as this more kind of assertive presence. She's got agency. She's, going to have a bit more of an active role, perhaps. And also this idea of like, Superman has these beliefs, like, I interceded in this international incident without consulting any like political, leaders or anything like that, because I believed it to be right. And when she kind of pushes back about different thoughts, is this like, had you considered XYZ repercussions, he keeps returning to that very simple idea, and we kind of start to see the thought about like, okay, is like, if something is morally just, is that always like the way to go with that? And that's setting that up for the rest of the storyline.
Yeah, and I really liked that interview scene because it manages to really put Superman in this world, and it perfectly sets up the entire conflict that's going on around him and inside him. Because I know this is something you wanted to touch on, is and this is one thing that we'll take from looking at the previous iteration of Superman with Man of Steel. Man of Steel really wanted to explore the idea of like, what would Superman look like in our world? What kind of controversy would spring up around him? Things like that. And that's exactly what Lois Lane is doing in this scene in this Superman movie. It's just as like, because Superman, in this moment acts more like the Saturday morning cartoon Superman. He's like, I just grabbed the president of this warmongering country and I took him out to a desert and we had a talk. And Lois Lane says like, you took a head of state and threatened him? And Superman's like, well, no, you make it sound so bad like that. I was trying to make sure people weren't going to die.
And so I think these two stories kind of look at that idea of like, is there space for Superman in today's political discourse? And they have two different approaches and attitudes towards it, and the relationship of the character to like a balance between understanding, navigating a morally gray world and maintaining a fundamental like hopefulness or optimism. I think there's a definite difference in the way that Gunn kind of navigates especially kind of the latter portion of this story, points the character in a different direction to Snyder's pontificating.
Yeah, because it's like in Man of Steel, there was so much focus on how we would react to Superman, that there wasn't a lot of focus on how Superman would react to that. He's just like, well, right. I guess I am an object of adoration. Just nail me to a cross now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pop a quick T-pose right now and stand in front of a portrait in a church.
And I like that Superman, like, as Lois is saying, like, look, the guy, I know he was an asshole, but his nation is technically an ally of the United States, and now you made the government mad, and now more people, some people just got hurt because of what you did, and that wouldn't have happened if you had not intervened. And and she's like going into all this stuff that's like very rational, like, oh, what about like all these political considerations, diplomatic considerations, the intricate balances of power? And Superman is just like, people were going to die. And like, in an ideal world, we would all immediately jump to what he says, whereas it's like, people were going to die, I stopped people from dying, that is an objectively good thing. Why is everybody upset about this?
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, and it should be, you know, it's one of those moments. It's like, it should be that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that this gets illustrated in next scene where, I don't know if it's the next scene. Yeah, a lot of stuff does happen. I can see like
very dense.
As like, I do think that the fast-paced stuff, the fact that so much is thrown at us, I think that is overall an asset, but it does mean that it can be a little hectic to keep up with things sometimes.
Yeah.
But Lex
Turning
Luthor,
the pages on that comic book.
but Lex Luthor does like unleash a new kaiju into the city to distract Superman while he sneaks into Superman's home. He's like, I'm gonna find some stuff to make Superman look bad. He'll distract him. And as Superman is battling the kaiju, the other heroes that I was talking about, the corporate sponsored, as he and the Justice Gang are fighting the kaiju, the Justice Gang isn't quite as, they're not as concerned with the collateral damage. They're just like, oh, we need to take this thing down. We're just gonna like jab it in the eye enough times to make it stop. And Superman's like, look, that's just like, there has to be a way to take this thing down peacefully so we don't kill it. Like, even if we have to, like, find a way to do it painlessly. And they're just like, just throw some bombs into it and make it explode from the inside out. You can see Superman's not real happy about that. You know, he's going around, he saves a dog from being stepped on by the creature. He saves little old woman. He saves a squirrel. And again, this really illustrates his priority of saving lives. You could say Superman is very pro-life in this movie.
God, that we can. And this sequence is where you really like, you know, you're talking about James Gunn loving superheroes and loving to make superhero movies, and this is where for me, it really was like, okay, yeah, this is like, James Gunn still has like an authorial stamp on this. He, like you're saying, with the difference between Superman's priorities and the Justice Gang's, he understands the assignment in terms of a Superman movie should be executed differently to, say, Suicide Squad or something, but there's still that base level weirdness that he has this fixation with eyeball stuff. I swear to God, like this one, the starfish with the eyeball in Suicide Squad that just gets poked in the eye. It's like, what is your deal, my guy? It's like Tarantino and feet or something. But you know, no one else would do that in this movie and have just Green Lantern poking him with a big old hand or something like that. So there's still room for him to just be a weirdo, and you know, there's like that kind of pops its head up every now and again, whilst, you know, so it's enjoyable from that perspective while kind of fitting within, okay, we're going to be on this end of the superhero spectrum as compared to something with a little bit of a edge to it.
Yeah, it's, and again, I like that he's not afraid to do some silly stuff, to do some weird stuff. You know, again, it's just, it's so much fun. It's like, it reminds me of the, like, the reason that I like the original Star Wars, 1977 Star Wars, the best out of all the movies that have been released so far, is that it just it throws weird stuff at you, and James Gunn loves doing that. And this movie is full of that, and that's why I love it.
Yeah. This also demonstrates that the people of Metropolis, at least at this juncture in time, apparently have no survival instinct, because there's just like a big old kaiju in the plaza. It is the perfect time to make a TikTok. Just standing next to that and as many explosive cylinders as possible. It's fascinating.
Oh, like Green Lantern has to like tell them like, hey, get out of here, please.
Like, but do it for the gram.
It's like all the same energy as like an accident has just happened, and the officer's like, all right, clear away, nothing to see here. I do have to say, because I'm not a big like comic book reader. I don't know a lot of stuff. So the only Green Lantern I know is Hal Jordan. And It was a lot of fun seeing this different Green Lantern who's just kind of like a douchebag.
He's such a dick. His fucking haircut.
It was like I was like, I kind of love this because it's, you know, like, because like he's still like, you know, he's still like saving people and everything, but he's also just like,
just constantly chewing gum.
It's like between that, you know, Crypto is like, you know, kind of like a scruffy little dog, he's not well behaved. I like that the characters have some rough edges to them. I like that Superman and Lois aren't this perfect couple. They're still kind of figuring things out. They're working on their dynamic. And like, it's like they don't know if this is even going to work out yet between them. And it does all this while still having Superman be what I would call a paragon. It's like he very much believes in what he does. And he's still able to have those edges to him where he's not sure about himself 100% of the time.
Right. I think not to reduce like any director down to like one idea that they have to be beholden to, but like as with Guardians of the Galaxy or Suicide Squad or whatever, he seems to really have an affection for underdogs or kind of folks who are not like successful conventionally, and he's found a way here through kind of an internal conflict to make Superman in a way that, while still maintaining, like you're saying, that kind of being a paragon for what he believes.
Yeah, you know, it's just, it's a very delicate balancing act, and I think the movie pulls that off very well. But it's during this fight that a big revelation happens. This is where I'll plant our spoiler flag. So we're gonna talk about
it right in his eye,
right in the eye of that kaiju. And because as Superman was dealing with all this, so Lex Luthor had snuck into his home and was looking through all of his secret stuff, and he finds a message from Superman's parents. Now, this message had been corrupted halfway through, so he only heard the part like, oh, you know, going to Earth and leading the people there to, you know, make their lives better, that kind of thing, serve humanity. But it turns out there was a second half of the message. And this is kind of a departure from, I think, most of the Superman stuff that we've seen before, at least on the big screen. Where it turns out that the secret half of the message that Superman hadn't seen yet, that is now broadcast over the world, is his parents said, yeah, those humans are so dumb and stupid. You should just rule them all and then just take a harem of wives and populate the Earth with Kryptonians again. And everyone's like, what the hell? Superman, what? And he himself, he's like, what the heck is this? And again, that's like a big change with the canon, at least from what I've seen of him on the screen.
Yeah, I think this is the first like pro-eugenics super parents I've been aware of.
And it is kind of like, I'm double guessing myself. I was about to say, like in Man of Steel.
God.
But it is interesting to kind of, in a way, it does make more sense for his parents to do that. I guess logically speaking, they would just be like, oh, go here and just be a good person. And be like, hey, go and we'll rebuild our civilization there. Just do what you need to, all right? And but what I do like is that it makes Clark have to make a choice. Because for him to just be bestowed with, you will be the guardian of Earth, you will lead them, this is what you will do, having that handed to him is one thing. Now he has to make the conscious choice to say, whatever my mission was that my parents gave me, I am going to choose to reject that to protect Earth.
Right. It pushes it makes him more active in his own arc, in his own decision making, and it also kind of removes the sort of sheen from Krypton, rather than it kind of being the idea of like Earth is this imperfect, messed up place where there's all these conflicts and stuff versus this perfect, wonderful, destroyed world. It's saying, okay, that type of thinking could exist in some form for his parents. It exists in some form here on Earth, and you kind of have to find a way to navigate that and maintain your own sense of what's right.
It takes away that emotional support he had, where it's like, oh, he could just rely on that. The robots say that it comforts him to hear his parents talk. And I actually like, because I was watching the movie, the robots have this very specific line where they say like, oh, we are here to serve you, things like that. And I found that away because, like I said, I have so much ground to cover in this opening. I was like, hey, there's a reason he said that. There's a reason the robot said that. And it kind of acts as subtle foreshadowing. Because when the robot's like, we are here to serve, it's like the parents programmed them to be like that because that's how they expected their son to want people, so to say.
Right.
It's kind of like trying to like subtly prime him to expect servants.
Right.
So I caught that as like, that's like a clever little detail there. So, so obviously Superman is very shaken by this. He goes to talk to Lois Lane. He's like, I think I'm going to turn myself in so that they can question me, because that's just what they want to do. I want to try to get people more at ease. And I love that as he's talking to her, the Justice Gang is like in the background just fighting this giant like squid.
Just jellyfish in the sky.
And again, I feel like I'm kind of repeating this over and over, but it just makes this feel more like a comic book world, not just our planet, but with a few tweaks, like we've seen with Marvel, like we've seen with the previous DC stuff, or like any number of these things. It feels like its own world.
Right, and it's just something that it's constantly happening, which kind of has this like not numbing effect, but like a normalization. Like, of course, this is constant sort of base level chaos that's just expected.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, like you said, they're not like numbing us to. It's more like it feels lived in. Like it feels like, oh, there's all this crazy stuff going on. Like I said, it's a world where people will see a giant monster and like, should we get out of the way? I don't know. It doesn't seem too bad so far.
Someone will deal with it.
Yeah. Also, it was just really funny because it's like you see Green Lantern like from this giant baseball bat just like bonking this thing as like Superman and Lois are having a conversation. It was like those little details like that brought me a lot of joy. So Superman, he gives himself up, but the government says, oh, we don't know how to handle you, so we're going to let Lex Luthor deal with it. And Lex Luthor's like, I'm going to put you in super jail in a pocket dimension. Should we talk about it?
About it?
About controversy, the someone being extrajudicially held outside of normal home.
No, there's
territory.
definitely no allegories to anything that's going on. Extrajudicial, like, interning of people without any sort of due process.
Yeah, it's just like on this front, movies take a long time to make. This finished filming before 2025, if there's any real world parallels with Lex Luthor's evil plan, I feel like that's on the federal government at this point.
I will say it is absolutely wild that neither of these filmmakers are terribly subtle, but crazy that in 2025, between Sean Gunn and Bong Joon-ho, Sean Gunn makes the subtler commentary, and I'm using subtle very broadly, but I mean, I will take anything in Hero from Mark Ruffalo in Mickey 17.
Sean Gunn?
Did I say Sean Gunn?
You said Sean Gunn.
I'm just making shit up. Well, it's his brother, James Gunn.
Sean Leguizamo.
Sean Leguizamo.
But yeah, it's that is so wild to me. Is like I still can't get over that. Like to kind of return to Mickey 17. We talked about this on another episode before. You can go watch that. But as time goes on, more and more that memory of my movie just focuses on that really unsubtle message that feels like maybe it would have been more prescient in like 2015, 2016, 2017. In 2025, It's kind of like, we get it, Bong Joon-ho. We get it.
We get it. Thank you.
Whereas James Gunn's, again, he's not a subtle man, but it definitely feels more relevant, more fresh, more applicable to what we're going through.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that. You've got, a country invading another one, which is happening several times over in the world. We have, again, our little, ice situation, which is what, I don't know. I really we've not Lex Luthor has been kind of responsible for the machinations of everything that's led to this, but he's so well done in this version because he's such a mix of interpretation of very much what you've got there. I think, you're saying, I think the whole internment thing is a little that was a very sad coincidence, but Elon Musk existing and being a little piss boy billionaire tech bro is not new. And there's a little bit of that here, but then he goes from being absolutely diabolical to just being a wimpy little bitch with a chip on his shoulder, just knocking over pencil cups and just making life kind of annoying for his underlings. So there's this mix of, okay, I want to reinvent Lex Luthor to kind of have some spin on today's sort of lexicon of, we have an army of Twitter monkeys in the Pocket universe, etc. But also, what's going to make him kind of goofy and take the piss out of him a little bit as well. Yeah,
and I feel like a lot of other, it's a role that I think would have been really hard to marry those two halves together. Nicholas Hoult, man, does not take a vacation. He nails it. He really gets great. Yeah, because I love the part where he's like something doesn't go his way. He keeps throwing stuff on the floor. They put the pencil cut back up, and he just knocks it over again like a cat. It's just it's so funny.
They're just so petty.
And that's just what I love. Is because he's very powerful. It's he can be a legitimate threat, but also he's incredibly pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And he manages to be pathetic without reducing his threat on the world. To kind of skip forward a little bit, because Superman is in this dimension, but he's able to get out of it through basically he's kept in the cell, and as an added bonus on this guy called, I think is Element Man, Elements Man.
Yeah, something Elemento.
Where it's he can turn into whatever substance exists, and so he turns his hand to kryptonite to keep Superman intact, to keep him incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
But when Lex Luthor comes to interrogate Superman, he takes this guy, I think his name is Mali, who had been this random civilian who had helped Superman out of a ditch, who had like sold Superman a falafel. And Lex Luthor's like, that Superman knows that guy. I'm going to drag him to my secret prison and play Russian roulette with him until Superman tells me what I want. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to do it with someone else. And like, first of all, like, holy shit. Like,
yeah, that was kind of brutal.
I was like, oh my God. But also that convinces Element Man, like, okay, I didn't know shit was going to be like this. They're keeping my son hostage in the cell across from us to keep me in line. If I help you, can you save them?
Right.
You know, again, like, you know, relying on, you know, Superman's reputation as a good person is what enables him to convince someone to help him out of the jail. That happens. Lex loses his shit and he's like, all right, we're gonna literally rip a hole in the universe and that'll get Superman distracted so that Boravia can start their war. And it turns out he has like this secret plan to like once Boravia takes over this country, half of it is going to be just handed over to Lex so that he can become a king.
Right.
And so
well, the idea of billionaires doing absolutely insane, destructive things just to get a little bit more power that they don't need, like there's no precedent for that either. So.
Oh no, it's like the whole thing of like, oh, they don't like me, they chose him, so I'm just gonna screw them all. I'm not gonna save anything. Yeah, so like that's kind of what the point I was going to get to, where he's just like, oh, screw them all. I'll stop the rift when it hits when it hits a city I actually care about. Again, just so petty, but still like petty in a way that is dangerous, and I think that's how you make that balance work.
Yeah, his danger and his pathetic nature come with his like absolute fixation with Superman, you know, from the opening when we know, you know, he's puppeteering Ultraman, and so he's got these like memorized, you know, coordinates that are, you know, fight moves. Like it's like he's been doing this as like a video game for centuries in his, you know, basement or whatever, so he's so obsessed in that regard. And then, like you're saying, it escalates to the point where he's willing to just rip apart the fabric of space and time because he's angry.
Yeah, like I love this particular point. Like he's still trying to play up like, oh, Superman is dangerous, he's destroying us all, and then it cuts to like the city being slowly unraveled as like this dimensional tear cuts through it. There's this beautiful bit of irony there. And so like Superman, like pretty much like he you know, he goes back to his parents and he recuperates at their house. And we get to see a bit of like what his childhood was like. We see his room, the posters on the wall gives us an idea of who he was. I think like if there's like there's a couple things. We've been praising the movie a lot, but there are a couple things I wish we could have seen more of. One of them, we were talking about Lex Luthor a lot. It would have been nice to see more of like Lex Luthor, a little bit more of his past with Superman, like him getting that grudge more in the first place, or to come back to where we are right now, seeing more of Superman with Ma and Pa Kent, seeing more of them in the movie. And I think that one is probably more important than the Lex Luthor not backstory, but like a little bit more background there. But like the Kents would be more important because having Clark choose between his Kryptonian parents giving him, you know, this mission and having to grapple with what they wanted him to do, I think it would have been more helpful for the arc if we got to see more of what the Kents taught him to do, what they said.
I suppose, like, I can see what you mean. But I also wonder if, kind of for the same reason we talk about like it being beneficial to just gloss over the beats that everyone knows, except for when you're doing something new with it. Like, I feel like it's kind of implied that all of his sort of moral compass and upbringing were as a result of his time with them, and we do get like Pa's little like requisite kind of cloying speech before he heads off. So like for me that was enough. And again, like little context clues like Lex Luthor's Rock'em Sock'em Robot was kind of enough for me to, paired with just the cultural, understanding of it all. That was enough for me, especially in something, it would have been hard at least when everything else is so kind of like rapid shot to slow down and do that, but I could understand why it might be beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly I think that's kind of the choice that had to be made with, because I wouldn't want to just like have all the backstory that was so smart to skip. And, I might, like if I was to get my hands on a movie, I'd be like, okay, add in a scene with the Kents earlier in the movie. And then it happens. I'd be like, oh, that kind of ruined the pacing. All right, never mind. Put it back. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things like I wouldn't know how to fix it. It's like, it's one of those things that I think might have been nice to see, but I could be entirely wrong.
It's so, the structure of the story is so forward facing that I think cutting back might set it off balance.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, even if, again, people say, it's overstuffed, but what do you cut? Because things are pretty well, like the things get, that are introduced do pay off. I don't know where you would cut anything. I think that it's a very precise balance. It can be a bit wobbly at times, but it is balanced. I think the only other thing I would want to see. So as the climax of the movie is coming up, again, Lex Luthor has opened up this dimensional split. It's heading towards Metropolis. So Superman has to deal with that, but there's also Bravia is about to invade. And there's this moment that actually made me tear up in the theater. Because again, we know that Superman had intervened in this before. And because of that, in the midst of all his controversy, in the midst of people saying like, oh, he's a dangerous person, he's against American interests, he's trying to enslave us all. Even amid all of that, these little kids raise up this flagpole. You see it in the trailer. The Superman on it, and they're calling for him to save them again. It was this very beautiful moment, but then it's the Justice Gang that saves them.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
I will say that image is like probably close to what like Batman versus Superman was trying to go for in making Superman into like this iconic image.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They did like him just being the symbol for people to believe in, like that moment. But again, Batman vs Superman didn't make me cry like that day.
Right. That's what I say, trying to go for.
And I think I get what they're trying to go for there, where it's like, oh, Superman needs to join up with all like the Justice Gang to, he has to work with other people to do, to save the world. And it is nice that the Justice Gang kind of break their like, oh, we don't want to be politically involved, to intervene here for his sake, for sake of everybody there. But I was really hoping that, after the kid raises Superman flag, see Superman come roaring back to save them again. I was like, oh, it's like the one payoff. I'm like, oh, I wish it was there.
Yeah, I took it to be more of the idea that Superman has been struggling internally with his idea of hopefulness, or how can I see myself as human, or whatnot. And I took that to be more like an externalization. Like, he has a positive influence on other people, and even when he is not there to make a difference himself, he can still affect change by inspiring others. And therefore, these previously kind of more, gun for hire type of figures are willing to stick their necks out for others. Yeah. And therefore, Superman isn't, even if he's just one person, he can cause effects worldwide, even aside from like being, Superman.
Yeah, it's like, I get that. It's like, I get why they do that. I get what it's saying. I really wanted that emotional image there. That's that's more of a me thing than anything else. But yeah, so they fight back Baravians. Green Lantern summons like giant middle fingers to flip. I just realized, because it rise out of the ground, they flip over the tanks. He's flipping off the tanks. Oh my god!
Look at that wordplay.
I swear to God, James.
It's Sean.
Yeah, so they are able to kind of fight back everything, and Lex is exposed by the Daily Planet. Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, they pull together the story, and he is exposed. And the most fantastical, most unbelievable part of this movie is that Lex Luthor goes to jail for his crime.
Consequences? What?
I'm sorry, Mr. Gunn, but that's just too far for me to buy. And I like that at the end of the movie, again, he returns to his Fortress of Solitude, and the robots again say, "Oh, play the footage of his parents." It calms him down, but this time it's of the Kents, and you get the idea that he has fully accepted his role as someone of Earth.
Yeah, that kind of got me. Just this very simple gesture that suggests that he's kind of embraced his kind of self-made identity, if you will.
Yeah, it's very good, a very nice gesture. He has that back and forth with Lex, like after he defeats them, and he's like I am, I am just as human as you are. And it's very good. Like, whatever flaws the movie might have, it's got that life to it. It's just got that something flowing through its veins. Made me so excited for it, made me so happy watching it. That really touched me emotionally. And I think what's most important is that it makes me want to watch a DC movie again.
Yeah, it's kind of a breath of fresh air. It's nice to be able to kind of, the tagline "look up" or whatever, like to be able to kind of have a shift in outlook. And just kind of see, like, having a sense of interest in what's coming next rather than a sense of, oh god, just gonna keep going.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see where we kind of start to head with Gunn kind of helming the outside of the kind of franchise at large, I suppose. Like, I think from these recent projects demonstrated that he, like I said earlier, kind of has an understanding of the various, like, the range of storytelling. He's telling it within kind of his own personal vocabulary, but there's a differentiation in tone that is appropriate for each character that we've seen. So it'll be interesting to see how he pushes that forward and interacts with other filmmakers.
I really just, all that matters is that DC is fucking back, baby. It's been 13 years, but now we're getting good movies again. You all better watch out over there, you guys. It's so smug. The high school me is coming out of here again. You gotta forgive me for this.
It's a lot.
That's right. We got a real movie again. No, it's very good, very exciting, and I want to see more of this universe. It's so quirky. It looks like so much fun. I just want to be like, what is the Justice Gang getting up to? And being able to walk away from a movie with that feeling is something that is increasingly rare, and I appreciate when I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts about Superman 2025?
Yeah, no, it was a good time. I will say that the Eve, I think her name was, the selfies person, did not expect that to pay off as it did, but
oh yeah,
we go from being a character that's just, why is there's this lady taking selfies constantly in the background of every single scene, and then you're like, oh, it's almost like it had a point in the overall structure of the story that would eventually reveal itself. I guess she's got some spycraft instincts or something. I don't know.
I really like that too. That was a really clever way, and because she's like the informant for Jamie Olsen, who's like giving him all the dirt on Lex Luthor, and she accidentally sends him like all of his selfies, and it's like, oh great, I can't use these. But she had been taking selfies in front of like all of Lex Luthor's big accomplishments, and so I was like, wait a minute, this is what we're looking for.
Just connect the dots.
And I was like, I saw like a moment before it happened. I was like, wait a minute, those selfies are going to be useful, actually, aren't they? And then it paid off. I was like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So smart.
Nice to have intent. And yeah, like I guess just briefly, like I was interested. The trailer came out and there were kind of like riffs on the opening of the John Williams theme for Superman from the, Richard Donner film, Christopher Reeve and all that. It's like, okay, is that just trailer stuff? Like they did that with every single kind of Lego sequel since Ghostbusters or whatnot. It was interesting that they do I forget the composers off the top of my head, but that opening fanfare kind of gets interpolated into the score. It is announced a couple times, but otherwise it's sort of like the harmonic sensibilities of it and whatnot. It was like, I was initially on the fence about it. It's like, okay, are we just going to harken back to it? But I think it was a good initial statement of like, okay, we're going to be, John Williams was evoking like kind of this Copeland idea of like American, and identity, and kind of grafting Superman onto that. And these composers are sort of saying like, okay, we're going to be in that realm of this character. We're kind of coming to a point of an optimism, and we're going to be playing with that palette, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that is a nice musical cue that it feels like, again, it's almost like we're saying we're stepping back to the classic Superman, Christopher Reeve Superman we all know and love, and bringing him into the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, speaking
and just only that opening bit, so it's still saying, okay, we're going to do something new with this, but we're just going to kind of ground it here.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually, there's one more thing I wanted to mention as well. So, there's actually a friend of mine, because we were talking a bit about like how like the war is like portrayed in the film and how it has parallels to current Israel-Palestine situation. Mm-hmm. Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to, before we wrapped up the podcast, to highlight a friend of mine. Their name is Buster Corp. They are Palestinian Arab Muslim, and they had a lot to say about how that was presented in this movie. I'll put a link to that in the description of this podcast episode. I would love to shout them out so that people can go watch their stuff there. It's a relatively short video. It's like less than 10 minutes. So I think it's worth checking out for all of our listeners here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to say about Superman?
Yeah, no, I think that's what I got.
It's a good movie. Deer's been a little thin on good movies. Like, we got Sinners, a lot of stuff that like it's been fine, but this is a rare one where I'm like, yeah, this was really good. I really enjoyed this. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Reynard, for this discussion. And thank you, all of you, for listening to us. If you want to see more of us, I'm at Daniel Goldhorn on YouTube.
And I'm Reynard/cinema on Tumblr.
And we'll see you all next time. You take care.
Bye.